She came to me in a waking dream back in December. A beautiful woman in a celestial gown flowing into space. She rested among the stars and the planets, existing in a place beyond time. This was the most magical being I have ever had the fortune to look upon. I knew her name without even having to ask. I had seen her before as a child and again as a teenager. Now, several years later, she reached out a hand to me and I extended mine in return. I then opened my eyes and went about my normal, ordinary life, unsure of what all this meant, if anything. A few weeks later, I was in the store and came upon this beautiful fabric. I stopped as soon as I saw it and immediately resolved to bring the mysterious woman from my vision to life. While there's not enough fabric in the world to properly recreate the beautiful gown that flowed from this woman's body, I could create an ordinary, everyday dress that I could wear in my ordinary, everyday life. With this dress, I could carry a piece of this woman with me and embody all the lessons she wanted to teach me. Moments like these are why I learned to sew. I expected to complete this dress in a few days. I thought it would be a nice Christmas gift to myself. But suddenly, the very easy sewing pattern I've used several times before became quite difficult. My work slowed to a crawl and then dragged to a complete stop. Somehow I could sew present after present for someone else, but was unable to sit and complete this one simple dress for myself. Eventually, when all of the Christmas present sewing was done, I stopped entering the office and I ceased sewing for a few weeks. The film you see on the screen here is the result of small bits of sewing stretching across many days, sometimes with weeks in between with no progress. As I put away my sewing machine, I felt frustrated and peaceful at the same time. My intuition was telling me that there was work to be done elsewhere away from the machine. I've learned by now that when the creative flow stops in one area of my life, I need to attend to the other sections that have been neglected. So I disconnected from the outside world, logged off all my socials, and went inwards. In winter, we retreat indoors, and in my heart, I retreated indoors too. I knew that the next steps forward would come from within. It was time for me to dream, time for me to sleep, and time to see. A few weeks later, I had another dream in which another woman came to me, screaming. My ears stung as I reeled from the shock of this figure. She was in the same dress as the first woman, but she was bloodied, the skin of her whole body stuck by thorns, and she had wild, mad eyes that had clearly been staring into darkness for far too long. I recoiled, but I knew her too. The fact that these two women were wearing the same gown was quite perplexing to me. The first woman was beautiful, intuitive, radiant, celestial, everything I could ever want to be. The second one, however, was despairing, in agony, shameful, and insane. But I soon realized these figures were two sides of the same coin. They were sisters, each of them possessing a unique connection to the divine. I could not embrace one without addressing and embracing the other. I understood now why I was struggling to sew this dress, because it became much more than just sewing. At this time, I learned to be more quiet and listen. I dreamed a lot, and I wondered on these dreams, certain they meant something. And I watched something new form in my heart, something that I could not name, but knew it was exactly what these two women wanted of me. During this time, I was dealt a few great disappointments, and I confronted old disappointments, knowing that these events were connected to these two dream beings. I moved forward and healed to the best of my ability. Slowly but surely, I was able to start sewing regularly again. As December passed and turned into January, then stretched into February, and finally March, the dress was finished. I had drifted through this winter, working hard physically, but my head and heart had been in a dream state all this time, fluid and airy. As I held the finished dress in my hands, it felt like I was waking up after a very long sleep. I was holding something of immeasurable value, despite the quirks and imperfections of this simple homemade garment. Weeks later, I saw the two figures again in a dream. They sat by me, smiling, both of them looking pleased. The divine has two faces, and for a very long time, I had refused to see both sides. I learned a valuable lesson from them and from the stress, and I try to understand it all as best as I can. I think now that I'm finally ready for spring.
Are you playing with my hair?